Hello everyone and welcome back to Art a la Carte. In this episode I'm going to be talking about drawing a wolf kind of standing on a rock looking down. It's kind of one of those epic wolf poses. Really common to see a wolf in this pose or howling, and you could easily change this wolf into a howling wolf. I have a video on how to draw a wolf howling and I'll put a link to that video in the description box below so you can check that out. But let's get started with today's video.
Pencil and some paper, and the best part is having lots of fun with art a la carte.
So the first thing I'm going to do is lay in some basic guidelines for my wolf, and for that I'm just going to be using some basic shapes. So I'm going to start off with the head first, and so I'll just use a circle shape for that. And then I'm going to bring down the backbone. Now because I want this wolf to be kind of up on a rock looking down, the front shoulders are going to be higher than the hips, the back hips. So my backbone is going to come down kind of at this diagonal line. And then I can go ahead and put in my shoulders and my back hips right in there. Again, just circle lines there. Now if you go back and look through some of my how to draw wolf videos, which I have quite a few of them out there, you're going to find a lot of good extra helps in there. But one thing that I have noticed through practicing with wolves is one mistake that I kind of ended up making is making my wolf's head too big in comparison to the body. The wolf's body is massively huge. And so the head is going to appear a little bit smaller in comparison if you were drawing a regular dog or something. It'd be just a little bit bigger for a domestic dog than for a wolf. Not that they're smaller, it's just the bodies are bigger. And their feet are really big as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in just where I want the muzzle to come out. And so I'm just going to put this line here for the top part of the muzzle, and then just kind of have this curving line going back here and underneath, just like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in the ears, kind of these rounded little triangles. And again, right now I'm not going in for detail. I'm just going in to make sure everything is kind of in the position, in the place that I want it to be. Now their necks look really thick. It's just because of the massive amount of fur that they have, especially if it's more in the cooler months like in winter. Their coat gets a lot thicker, so you just kind of boosh that up a little bit there. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in the legs, and I'm just going to put those in using stick figures. That way I can make sure that my legs are in the right position. So I'm going to come down here just right at the ankle and kind of put that little ankle bone in there and then bring it in for the paw. Now if you're looking at reference photos, it's good to measure to see how the distance is from the top of the shoulder to the elbow and from the elbow to the bottom of the paw to make sure that you're getting those nice long wolf legs in there. And again, I'll put in my other wolf paw right there. A lot of people ask me, do you use reference photos when drawing? And especially with animals that I'm not super comfortable drawing with, I use a lot of reference photos. But I feel free to change things up. Like the reference photo that I'm looking at, the wolf is looking a little bit different. Its head is a little bit more a 3/4 angle. So I just kind of take it as a guide, but you know, I go with what I want to create. That's the fun thing about art. I'm not trying to recreate this photo exactly. I want to create my own thing. So I'm going to bring in for the bottom of the belly, and that's going to kind of go a little bit parallel with this backbone line here is the bottom of the belly. And then for the hips. And the hips of the wolf is going to come from, here's the hip bone, going to come down to the knee, and then not too much of a bent. Like you don't want to have it bent really far back. Just a very slight bend coming back here to the back of the legs, and then you can kind of see as the paw comes down here. And the same thing with this leg over here, just like that. Now when I have these in here, now I can go back and start fleshing these out, putting in the muscles and the body mass in there. But I just want to make sure that first of all I have everything in the right position first, because it's much easier to erase this one line than it is all these other lines, and if I have shading and shadowing and all that going on there. So how do you double check to make sure that everything is positioned and proportionally correct? One thing I do is step away from my drawing for a few minutes. If you're thinking, something's not right, but you're not able to see what it is, put the drawing down for a second, go get a drink of water, run to the restroom, go get some dinner, come back in a few minutes with fresh new eyes, and a lot of times you can see what's going wrong with your picture. Another thing to do is take your picture and to prop it up on the opposite side of the room and then look at it from across the room. Seeing it pulled back a little bit can also help. But if that fails, I will take my picture to a mirror and look at it in a mirror. And seeing it reversed really helps me to find those things that maybe aren't looking so good. Now there's one more thing we have to put on this wolf, and that's his tail. Now if he was really happy to see somebody, his tail might be out and kind of flowing, welcoming them. But if he's trying to be a little bit discreet, you know, his tail will be a little bit more discreet, I guess would be the word. Now the one thing that I am seeing, and this again just comes from just kind of looking at the pictures, this leg is pulled a little bit too much forward. So even though I fleshed it out, I can still go back and make some changes. And this is because I am drawing super lightly. I'm hardly putting any pressure. I'm actually putting more pressure on this paper than I normally would. I want to barely see my line because then it makes it easier to erase this. I'm pushing a little bit darker because if I kept it as light as I normally do, you guys couldn't see it, and it would make for a very challenging art tutorial lesson if you guys can't see what I'm doing. But you'll see that I should be able to erase these lines fairly quickly. I have my little erase pencil here. This is an eraser here. You can see the lines that I kind of pushed a little bit harder on. You can still see those, but if you push super light, the pencil should be able to pull up relatively easy. So there, just by moving this over just from here to here changes a lot on that. So now before I get into the inking process, I want to do a quick look at the wolf's face. I'm going to put a small line here from this, where this eye ridge is here, over here, and this will help me to know where the eyes will be. They're closer up front to the face because the wolf is a predatory animal. The eyes are located towards the front of the skull. That way it can really focus and zero in on its prey. If it's a prey animal, like a deer or a rabbit, the eyes are set farther back so that I can see behind it as well as in front of it. A little trivia there. Now to do the wolf eyes, I'm going to make a slightly slanted line up and then a slightly diagonal line down. And then I'm going to put a nice curved line connecting those two. And I have some really good videos on drawing a wolf face and stuff like that, and wolf eyes. So definitely check out the playlist. That'll be in the description box for all those extra details. So what do you use to ink in your pictures? Well, for me, I use the Micron. This is the Sakura brand Micron. It has a permanent ink, so it's archival ink, which means that it's not going to fade or turn kind of dingy or yellow with time. It's going to stay this nice black line that you put down. Is going to stay that way. And the Sakura Microns, this is not a sponsored video, I'm just kind of telling you the brands that I like, come in so many different sizes. So for a fine line, I like to use a 01, which is a very fine nib size, so you can barely see it. It's right there on the very tippy tip. But this is not even my smallest nib size. I have this one here, which is a 005, which is even smaller. Yeah, I don't even know if you could see it. Right there. It is super tiny. I don't generally draw with this one too much just because it is super fine. I really enjoy using a 01 or 03. So I'm going to start in adding my detail, and again, you want to make sure that this pencil sketch is exactly the way you want it. It's really hard to erase a pen line, which is actually quite impossible. But I'm just going to start laying in my line. Now, if this was a smooth drawing, something that's smooth, maybe like a plastic or even skin, I would be making just a smooth swiping line. But you're going to notice I am going to lay in my lines very irregularly. And this is going to give the indication of fur. So I'm just going to tap here and wiggle there. And so it makes the line how the shape wants to go, but it's giving texture. Now here for the nose, I want this nose to be smooth, so I'm going to create a smooth line right there. And just a hint of that right over there. But for the rest of the body, I'm going to use just little dots for the shorter hair, and then as I get to longer fur, I'm going to use little flicks, and this is going to create that fur-like texture. So for everyone who's been asking me, how do you draw animal fur? That is one of my techniques, is to create this. And don't have all your flicks going in the same way, because you don't want them to be uniformed. Have a little bit of variance in them so you can see they kind of wiggle in different ways. It just makes it look a little bit more realistic as the way fur goes. But you'll see that my lines travel the same distance and same direction as if I would just put a regular line in there. Inking in the outline of my wolf, but I'm not done inking in yet. Now I'm going to begin putting in some textured details using my ink pen in places where there might be folds in the skin or that the fur is overlapping. So like right here, I want to indicate a little bit more of the shoulder muscles. So I'm going to add in again that same little pattern that I'm making, not a straight line, but just this little flicking motion. And then I might even add a little bit up here to kind of indicate some of the muscles around the chest area. I want to do is I want to add just kind of an artistic border here. So I'm going to take this, actually it's an embroidery hoop that I use, but I use it as a stencil to create a nice circle shape. So I'm just going to hold this here. If you wanted to do this in pencil first, you can definitely do that. But I'm going to run this line all the way around till it gets to these rocks, and then I'll stop. Right like that. And that's going to kind of maybe create like a moon coming up behind my wolf. That'll create some really fun interest. Alright, so there's my wolf picture. It's all finished being inked in. Now I'm going to go ahead and let the ink dry. I'm going to erase the pencil lines, and then I'm going to start adding in some color. Adding in your shadows using your pen. You could go back with your pencil and shade in with your pencil. You could go in with color pencils, crayons, paints, markers, whatever you want, or you could just leave it like this as a finished piece. It's whatever you want to do. But I really encourage you to begin practicing with this. If you find this a little bit challenging, don't give up, and don't be frustrated if it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want it the very first time. Just keep practicing with it, trying again and again and again until finally you'll find that it gets easier and easier the more that you do this. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and as always, God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!